Everything all right?
All right. Yeah. I don't know. Smoke alarms just went off, but
we're back. Week 7 coming at you. It's the Rose Tackle Football Show. Michael, your host, joined by Brother John. Brother John, how we doing?
great. I mean, we're getting this out early this week. I'm pretty impressed by us. But I will say we have not had a guest yet this year. I was thinking about this earlier.
Yeah.
Love to have a guest.
We got to do the Duncan show at some point.
Yep. Yeah. I'll send out a form for questions.
Yes, that would be good. Maybe over Thanksgiving, or actually in a couple weeks I'll be down there, so maybe we could get some audio then, but we'll have to get a Duncan show out, and would be good to have some other guests, revisit some folks that haven't been on in a while.
Yeah, maybe we do like a sort of like a WWE type thing, AEW thing, where we have like Steve on, and then like James Surprise joins, and then they
in the waiting room. That would be great. A little like Bill Burr and Billy Corgan kind of. All right.
Bill Burr, man, no longer. He's out. He got canceled.
I know. Officially been canceled. All right. We got a lot to get to. So let's jump right into it. Week 6 in the books. This week, I think, if I read correctly, this week was the lowest scoring week across the league in terms of fantasy thus far. This year, and I think it was reflected in a lot of the scores that we saw across the league. There were a few teams that put up big points, but there were also a lot of really low scores. Peter at 68, a bunch of people in the 80s. Duncan didn't quite crack 80. So a lot of people across the league scoring low. It was also a week, and we'll get into this a little bit further in a minute, that I think really muddled the playoff picture in the RTFL. Just as you're starting to think some of the divisions will come into focus, I think we have less focus in them after this last week. So an interesting week, to say the least.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's one division, obviously, that is, kind of some clear cut, two leaders that will, barring some unknown catastrophe, will definitely be making the playoffs. Which, take six people into the playoffs, one from each division, and then 3 at large. In years past, we've had one additional person from each division. In other years, we've had 3 people from one division going. And I would say, like, as of right now, that's in play for every division, right? There could be any of the divisions could have 3 teams make the playoffs. But certainly it looks like at least 2 from each division very well could. It's exciting.
For sure.
The win-loss column, I don't think accurately represents the rankings or the talent on all the teams. If you look at the points for, it's interesting to see sort of where those points for leaders fall in their division at the moment. So
For sure. And we'll get into that, I think, when we kind of break down at least two of the divisions here in a second. But first, just to wrap up sort of week 6, Peter's time on the island comes to an end. See ya. 68 points from the team that I believe coming into the week was the second highest or third highest in points scored, puts up 68 points, mostly due to, some, well, I say mostly due to some catastrophic injuries, but at the same time, he also fell for the Haskins hype and, head down games from guys like Judkins and St. Brown. But the Puka injury, obviously, I think played a large part in Peter's rough week that he had.
It was an interesting injury. I watched the replay a few times and I couldn't really figure out when his ankle got rolled up on or sprained. Like, it didn't really look like there was much of a impact on his ankle. So it'll be interesting. I hear that he'll be out at least a couple weeks, especially with their bye coming up after the London game this weekend. So that'll be interesting. That's going to be an interesting team to watch. Like, who steps up in that offense, and can Devontae take on that number one role again, especially an offense that favors the slot receiver more than the outside receiver that Devontae is typically that role that he plays. So that'll be an interesting one.
Yep. There was a week 6 prize. It went to
skip over it. No big deal. Went to our points leader. He did it again.
This guy.
Mr. Mike Rose.
140 points for the third straight week. I will take that every day of the every week of the year. So we're rolling along over here in Decatur. Things are going swimmingly at the moment, but we may get into some spots that might trip me up in a second. But let's so week 6, there was the Puka injury. There was also, I think, some really some really big other injuries across the league. And this is in a year in which we've seen some huge injuries. So just to run through them a little real quickly, Puka goes down. You want to do this, John? Go ahead. You do it.
Yeah, Puka goes down. Ubeka goes down. Marvin Harrison out with a concussion. That was rough. Garrett Wilson also getting injured, which is because we were talking to Fitz. Fitz, he was looking to shop Garrett Wilson and wanted to beat Doug, which unfortunately he did not, to all of our chagrin. And so now will he be able to move him? Ridley, his disaster of a season is now even worse. Njoku goes down, and Cleveland, and then not fully injured, didn't miss much of a game. He came back, but DJ Moore on that beautiful Monday night game. I can't believe we didn't open with that.
I know.
But we'll see what happens there for him. But we're gonna need him back, because the Bears are going to the Super Bowl. So
I'm trying not to get too hyped about the Bears, but I also don't want to go too far in the opposite direction and end up being a Troy Aikman type character here. So I will just say I like what I've seen thus far from from the Bears offense. There's some kinks they got to work out, but it was great to see Swift get going on the ground. And, Caleb has been every bit of what I had hoped he would be thus far this year. There's still some errant throws every now and then, but for the most part, he's looked really, really good. A solid NFL quarterback. And
two things on that. Apparently watching the game, that bad man Troy Aikman, they talked about how Ben Johnson forced Caleb Williams to switch which foot was forward at the snap, right? So Caleb had always had his right forward. So I could see how these mechanics have changed, and he's still getting used to that. So I could see how throughout the season it progresses, into a more and more accurate thrower. But also, I guess it came out that Caleb Williams came out and said that he missed his meeting with Troy Aikman Sunday, and he tried to call him later in the evening, and Troy didn't pick up. And so I guess Troy took that personally, and here we are.
Well, I mean, I feel like Aikman has always had a bit of a thing about the Bears. Every time they get part of me doesn't blame them, because for the longest time, the Bears get these, they get primetime games all the time. Aikman and Joe Buck have to call them, and they're always like the shittiest fucking games that you could watch. And so I'm sure he's a little bit jaded about Chicago is on the schedule. We got to do another Chicago game. This is going to be terrible.
Yeah.
But listening to, and it's at a certain point I just muted it, but listening to him sort of gloat over Jaden Daniels and talk about, there was that moment when they're Washington's down 13 points or whatever in the first half. It's like 13-0. They show the shot of Daniels on the sideline just smiling and laughing, which, not a big deal, doesn't matter at all in the context of the game, but they use it as this moment to talk about what a great kind of atmosphere he sets on the sideline, and he's not worried and stuff like that. And it's just like, that's the sort of shit that if it was Caleb Williams over there, he would have gotten killed for not taking the game seriously. And I'm gonna put this out there. It might get me in a little bit of trouble with the aggregators, but I'm gonna put it out there. I think there's also a little bit of from these NFL commentators, particularly guys like Troy Aikman, old school NFL quarterbacks. I think it's still the Caleb Williams paints his nails thing.
Oh, totally.
I think that is a big part of it. And I will tell you, I play a lot of golf, and I often go by myself. I'll go be a random with like 3 other people, and so I'll get paired up with it's usually Chicago dudes who are in their 50s, and they still talk about that shit. I hear it almost every time I'm out there. Caleb's not the guy. He paints his nails. He doesn't have that dog in him. I swear to God, I hear it all the time. I heard it 2 Sundays ago. I think there is that mentality that is still out there. And I think that's part of it that nobody is talking about, totally. But I think it's part of it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, Trevor Lawrence gets the same thing, with his long hair. And they're 4-2 or 5-1 now. It's you gotta give him credit at some point. Baker had the same shit. He parties too much. He's not a serious guy. He's not all this stuff. It's all right, look at him now. Well, it's very.
I'm sure the rest of the league is loving this, especially all the Packer and Patriot and our lone Bills fan out there. Oh, we have to take something we haven't done in a little while. We're going to take a quick commercial break here, and we will be right back with more of the RTF Show.
Hello, do you like lemonade? I sure fucking do. Would you like some of my lemonade? You sure fucking would. Enjoy Pete's Lemonade, the sponsor of today's RTFL podcast. Don't leave home without it. A big gallon or jug will be just right for you. Thumbs up means cool. Good luck on your season, fellas. Have a good one.
All right. Back from commercial break. We that was a good way to get us out of our Bears chatter that we had fallen into, the Troy Aikman hate.
Yep.
Let's get back on task. I don't remember where we were in terms of the rundown, but
essentially
we were talking about.
Let's look at the waiver wire.
Not much going on the waiver wire. Indiana Jones goes to Porter, who I think that's a good pickup. I think he's a solid. He's going to be a solid backup, I guess, to Porter. Porter doesn't really. I mean, he's got Kyler Murray, who also injured, which that happened 2 weeks ago. I don't think we talked about it, but Kyler also injured. And he's got Justin Fields, who that's kind of a nightmare scenario. So I think for Porter, maybe Jones steadies the ship in some regard. You get a solid 17 to 20 points every week instead of the fluctuation that was coming with Fields. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
kind of that low bar with Murray. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to go with Daniel at the moment. I mean, 6 game sample size. I mean, a third of the season at this point. He's the number 7 quarterback in terms of fantasy on the number 1 team in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some technical glitches in the show today. We apologize. The other big news that we talked about, CD coming back. And I think that's a good turning point for us to get into kind of the meat of what we wanted to talk about today, which is the state of the divisions and kind of the trade market that's out there for folks. So right now, we highlighted this at the top of the show, the Sweetness division, sort of 2 front runners. The Staley's at the top at 6-0, the points leader. Kelly has, continued to win. And despite the trade she made last week kind of falling flat in its debut on her team with Debo and Saquon both kind of putting up duds, Kelly found a way to win. Comes into week 7, 5-1. Steve, kind of maybe the most important result for the division. Steve beats out Peter, puts up 83 points, but beats out Peter. It's now 3-3 with kind of his ragtag crew of guys. Drake May putting up numbers. It's Steve's roster, and I think he would admit, is not impressive to look at. There is not much there in terms of star power. So it's hard to say where he goes from here, but he's at 3-3, and actually, in terms of points, he's not that far behind Kelly. I think he's only, he's like 35 points or 40 points behind Kelly
In-
in the division.
And Steve's
yeah.
ahead of points. Steve's ahead of Kelly in points.
No, he's not.
You're looking
Steve
look at the points for.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Steve's
sorry,
at 5.
My apologies. I was reading off of your screen. Too small.
So
sorry, the smoke alarm things rattled me. I don't know what's going on.
I hear you.
Just 3 beeps. Very weird.
I think I think it's an interesting scenario for Steve to be in, because he's not out of the playoff picture mathematically by any means, and in fact is kind of right there, but needs to improve his roster. So I would be interested to see what's going through Steve's head right now. We can talk about some trade partners in a minute, but let's look at the Papa Bear division. Papa Bear, you've got 3 teams sitting at 3-3. Yourself, John Rose, sitting at 3-3. The Peter at 3-3 and Ken at 3-3. Interestingly, the team with the least amount of points in that division leads the division at 4-2. That's Doug. Doug sits atop it. How firm is Doug's grasp on this division, John?
I mean, Doug had a bit of a, I would say, slow start points wise, right? But due to, I think, some injuries on not to his team, but to players that are on his players' teams, he's kind of split into this spot where, like, there's potentially a lot of fantasy points headed his way, right? We talked about the Puka injury. Devontae Adams should probably benefit from that. Despite his touchdown dependency so far on the season, if you look at Devontae Adams' numbers, it's he's largely propped up by touchdowns. He scored, I think he's had under 60 yards in at least 4 games. So he's not putting up a lot of points in terms of yardage. He's getting a lot of targets, but not having a lot of catches. I think he has, I was listening to this podcast and they said that he has an under 50% catch rate season, which is the lowest of his career. But he's had plenty of touchdowns. Now I think that'll probably improve as the season goes on, especially Puka out. Waddle as well. Really benefiting from the Tyreek Hill injury. And Trey McBride.
Quick note on Waddle. Rumor came out today. Waddle is being shopped by Miami. One possible destination, the Giants, which I can see being a real boon for Waddle. The Giants are also without a clear-cut wide receiver 1. And honestly, arguably have a more dynamic and better quarterback than he's currently playing with Miami. So, and at least a team that is in contention in some way, or at least, still going to be playing for something going forward.
For sure.
So, and that's another move that I think would indirectly benefit one of Doug's players. Not indirectly, directly, but based on the situation he lands in. You were saying McBride, another one with MJ, with Marvin Harrison Jr. out.
Yeah, potential boom. And then, QJ going down for the Chargers, not so long. That'll be huge game time, so he could be back, this week.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen, who's had a couple of down weeks, given his hot start to the season. But, obviously still a favorite receiver for Herbert. So, I could see, Doug potentially, gaining ground on the points in the points category, but maintaining, his lead in the division, which, at this point is like, it's one game, but like that game could be the difference maker at the end of the season. Right. And so, Well, Doug has the least points for. It's not by that much, and I think Doug has a very good team.
Mhm.
Right now. So
Yeah, I mean, we say all that to highlight those other players in Devontae Adam, Waddle, and McBride, Keenan Allen. Pollard, for all his flaws, Pollard's actually been pretty decent this year. Like as far as an RB2 goes or a flex goes, Pollard hasn't been bad. But sitting atop Doug's roster is the, best running back in the league, maybe. So if he's got Bijan on his roster, I think, anything is possible for Doug. All he needs is those other guys to put up kind of the around the league average for their position, and he should be okay most weeks because Bijan just seems to be playing.
Yeah.
He seems to be going nuts. So
yeah, I mean they're that team that like number 2 offense, number 1 defense right now. It's just clicking in Atlanta.
I mean,
for some reason, which I don't think anyone predicted that, but very good for Doug.
I mean, I don't think there's only one other running back I'd rather have on my roster at this moment, and he is on my roster. But
you wouldn't rather have CMC? I mean, come on, baby.
No. I'd rather have Jonathan Taylor than CMC. You seen CMC?
Two running back in the league right now. What are you talking about?
Who's number 1?
Probably Bijan. No, is Bijan number 3?
Yes.
All right. Well, I guess maybe Taylor.
You seen CMC's yards per carry this year? They ain't great, I'll tell you that. Lowest of his career.
Because he's catching all the footballs, man. He's getting 10 targets a game.
Kittle's coming back. Parasol will be healthy. All right. Yeah, I think Doug's spot is I think this division in particular is probably going to come down to those 3 games at the end of the season, those 3 weeks at the end of the season where you all play each other. And I think it's going to be tough. And whoever comes out of that with the win, whoever comes out of that with a winning record is going to be the team that sits atop this division.
Yeah, I mean, if one of us loses to, someone in the peanut division, or loses to, let's say, Jake, Jake or Kelly, or Steve, right? Like, I think that will be a killer. I think we all are, probably expect to lose to you, depending on how bye weeks and whatnot shake out. That's not a guaranteed win by any means, or expected win, I would say. But if one of us loses, to someone in the peanut division, that's going to be brutal as far as going into those last 3 weeks. So, you really got to win the games you need to win in this division in order to set yourself up for those last 3 weeks.
Agreed. I want to touch on the other Hoffman brother quickly. I had a note in my when I made the rundown, I put a note in there. I don't know if you saw it before I deleted it, but one of the topics I put was, is Ken screwed? And I deleted it because I don't think he's screwed. And actually there were rumors today too that Breece Hall is possibly so most often trade, comes up in trade talks most often. Could possibly be on his way out. Maybe a new situation is helpful for Breece Hall. But I do want to get we haven't talked too much about Ken's team this year. And the Neighbors injury hurts a lot. Bowers has been injured. Bowers, even before he was injured,
he was playing injured and then got injured.
and just has not, he hasn't put up the numbers that you would expect of him after last season. Where Gibbs has been fine. I think Gibbs, he's the 9th running back. He had a down game last week, but he hasn't really had one of those like 30-point. He had one 24-point game, but he hasn't really had, we haven't had any of those huge games for the most part that we would have come to expect from. The thing that I think is holding Ken's roster together is the fact that JSN has turned into the best receiver in the league. He's been unbelievable this year. And just consistency across the board from JSN. And then McMillan had some down weeks in here, but McMillan is like, he's been really good for the Panthers. And I think that's helped Ken quite a bit in terms of sustaining his team out of the Neighbors injury, out of the Bowers injury. And then the other guy is Odunze, another guy who had a down week this week. But Odunze has been awesome. Now, the fear I have with Odunze, not as much with McMillan, because McMillan's hasn't been so much touchdown based as it has just been targets and, getting the yardage. But with Odunze, my fear is it is so many touchdowns that's propping up Odunze's numbers that he falls back to earth a little bit like we saw this week. There is not a deep bench here. How are you feeling about Ken's team? We both, I think, recognized Ken's team as the best team in the league coming into the season. How are you feeling about it?
I took him as the division winner. You took Doug.
I did take Doug.
And sort of seems to be playing out a little bit that way. But I think Kenton still is like, to me, is still the biggest threat in the division, right? Gibbs, I think, like you said, hasn't had a down week, but also hasn't been what he was last year with all the 30-point games. And Dan Campbell even came out and said, like, we're relying on Gibbs too much. We're not running Montgomery as much, which when they did that last year, Gibbs actually performed better, right? So, like, the more runs that Montgomery got, the better Gibbs did. And so I could see them starting to balance that run game a bit more, and then Gibbs having those big games, right? Yeah. And so, which would then crush it. Breece Hall, if he gets moved, I don't know where he would move to. The Chargers maybe would probably be like the likely.
I was thinking Arizona, maybe.
Arizona, both of them just terrible injuries to the running back core. Both I think would benefit Breece Hall quite a bit, and so I could see that if that does happen, that would be good for him. But yeah, I think his two wide receivers, McMillan and JSN, like as the season goes on, I think they're only going to get better. It seems like McMillan is sort of finding that groove with Bryce Young, which will be scary. Should he continue to put up and get as many targets as he has, save for last week, which was only 5. But and then Odunze, I think it's a tough week. It was that the weather was awful. Our run game was going, and so we just didn't throw as much. And I think teams are starting to key in on Odunze, and so we'll see how he responds. Like movement, and like I don't see the Bears trading DJ Moore away or anything like that. So I think like our wide receiver core is what it's going to be all season. But I think that there's plenty of space in there for him to continue to get the targets. And then as if you look at this, like you look at his receptions versus target rate in the first 3 weeks. In the first 2 weeks are really good. That third week was a little bit down on 3-7, under 50%. Week 4 is 50%, and then under again in week 6 and down targets. So, like, presumably it moves back towards those first couple weeks. And Odunze is going to be, as good as he was then, and it'll work itself out. And so, for Ken to hit on both McMillan and Odunze, very scary, given he's got JSN and he's got Neighbors locked up. He potentially could, have a very strong wide receiver trio next year and the year after that. And then assuming Bowers comes back, I'm surprised he didn't start. I mean, maybe he starts, Mayer this week, given Mayer's involvement in the offense, that week. But
he's got Mayer in there right now. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, and I'm not overly concerned about Ken's team. I think he'll be. I expect his team to make the playoffs. There's too many good players on this roster for him not to make the playoffs. So, it would be surprising. And it's not like he's been bad this year. 658 points. While not the points leader in his division, 658 points puts him, I think, at number 4 in the league in terms of points. So he's putting up points. He just hasn't quite gotten the record to show that. But part of that is obviously playing in the division in which he plays. So, all right, let's move quickly to the peanut division. So the peanut division, my pick to win this division was Fitz, who I think coming into it, both of us thought had a pretty damn good roster. And oddly enough, when I look at Fitz's roster, I still think Fitz has a pretty damn good roster. But he's put up 490 points. I think he's the only team that hasn't cracked 500 points yet. And hasn't won a game yet. And is really struggling to put some wins out there, sitting at 0-6. So I think 0-6 puts Fitz, especially with the points total, puts him firmly outside of the playoff picture. He doesn't need a miracle to get there. But there are the other teams.
You have to win all 8 games to make it.
But there are 3 other teams in that division that I think all have a shot at making the playoffs. Porter, Alec, Duncan. What's your sense of this division?
It's hard. I mean, I played Alec last week, and I was confident, but there was never a moment where I was like, oh, this is a sure thing. His team, a lot of questionable tags there, are all guys that are capable of putting up 20 fantasy points a week, and then and are also on teams that are going to feed them the ball, right? And so and you're seeing guys like Pacheco come on a bit more in the last 2 weeks. Josh Allen unfortunately had a down week this last week, but you have guys that are like that, Olave, who's still getting his share, who's also part of trade talks as well, I believe. You can see him moving to potentially the Patriots. I know they're shopping for wide receivers at the moment. His name has come up. Jalen Warren's healthy again, and you'll see him get the lion's share there in rush attempts, and then Kamara has said he's not going anywhere.
Mhm.
There's no movement there, and I think that his passing game ability is still top 5 as in terms of running backs. So you're still going to get a lot of production out of him as that team gets better, which I think the Saints are getting better every week, and so some big injuries though. As far as Mike Evans and potentially DJ Moore. So we'll see. I don't count Alec out, and that guy's not afraid to make a move, and so I wouldn't be surprised if Alec was doing something right now and none of us know about it, and all of a sudden, boom, another move by Alec, and so I don't count him out. Also on his team, another person who's been in trade talks is Jacoby Myers. Also actually being moved to the Patriots again. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see sort of where some of these guys land. But yeah, same thing. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, Alex's team intrigues me. I think, he's got Josh Allen on his team, and I think having Josh Allen on your team for the most part is a bit of a cheat code in terms of fantasy. We talked, I think, we talked briefly at some point earlier in the show about Josh's team and his quarterback situation in regards to Daniel Jones. And I think we talked the last couple weeks a little bit about his wide receiver situation in terms of Chase and Brown. So we don't need to spend too much time on Josh's team. But I think you picked Josh to win the division. I think Josh's team was the other team I was contemplating. Are you still confident in that pick? How do you feel about that pick?
Yeah, his wide receiver core is still potentially, top tier. It's really difficult. Chase obviously got his numbers last week. AJ Brown is probably the most frustrating wide receiver to own in the league at the moment. But presumably, if Swift can maintain his sort of emergence this past weekend, between him and Javonte Williams, who seems to have a huge resurgence, which I love that Josh went on and got Javonte Williams again. Just seems to be his guy. Unwavering belief in this man. And it seems to be working out right now for him. And so
I think Josh has had Javonte Williams every year that he's been in this league, I think. Hasn't he?
I would think so.
The transaction history doesn't go that far back, but didn't he sign him to a 3-year contract at some point?
He was on contract.
So I think he drafted him in 2021. I think he signed him for 3 years and then picked him back up. Yeah.
Just can't quit.
Yeah. So Josh's team, I have circled as, I think, given the state of the Bomboleros, I've got Josh's team circled still as the team I think that could break out of this division. But I want to give Duncan some credit here and give him his due. We talked a little bit, or you talked a little bit about the idea of Detroit getting Montgomery more involved, and it sounds like that's a direction in which they're going to go, which is only going to help his team. The other thing that Pickens has been a boon for Duncan so far this year. He's the number 3 wide receiver, believe it or not, in fantasy football.
Yeah.
Some of it based on the back of these 2 games in which he really popped off, but he hasn't since week 1. Pickens has not had a bad game. He's been great, and he's been catching touchdowns left and right. But he's got the targets to go along with it. That offense is airing the ball out. So I I don't think Pickens' numbers, you know, I think we probably see fewer of the 30 and 29 point games, but I think Pickens sustains the 15, point
Oh,
games
he's
when
yeah. I think
Lamb comes back.
yeah, yeah, for
So,
sure. I think Lamb coming back may only help him. I mean,
mhm,
I don't know what
mhm.
defenses are going to do in that situation. And Pickens this past week, I guess he scored, his 8th touchdown of the season, or 7th touchdown of the season, which broke his record for most touchdowns in a season. So he's officially
Yeah.
scored more touchdowns. I guess it's only 6. He had never scored 6 touchdowns in one season. In
I mean,
Pittsburgh.
it's not surprising in Pittsburgh, but so I agree. I think Pickens maintains, and then the other guy that it'll be interesting to see, Ladd the last couple weeks has started to reassert himself and emerge. So it'll be interesting to see if Ladd can keep that up. It was nice to the targets move up a little bit this week. The the yards per target are up a little bit this week. So if Duncan's going to do something this year, I think Ladd's going to be a big part of it, especially with Igbuka being down. And I don't know. It doesn't seem at the moment like this is going to be a long-term injury, but a hamstring is always iffy and could keep him out for quite some time. Josh Downs, another guy that was on his way up the last couple of weeks, playing a little bit better and getting more targets, entered concussion protocol this week. I forgot about that in the injury section, but yeah, I like Duncan's team. I think he's got a real shot.
Yeah. I think. I mean, as far as the Ibaka hamstring injury, I mean, Tampa Bay is very familiar with those, and I mean, Mike Evans has worked through and played through I don't know how many hamstring injuries over the years, and has put up numbers despite having just I don't know how he has a hamstring at all left, but I think he'll get right, and so Duncan found his way into a really really good team, so that'll be an interesting division to watch.
So I want to bring this all back together and ask kind of one question. We're at the halfway point of the season, basically entering the halfway point of the season. The trade deadline is a couple weeks away, 3 weeks away at this point. And now is the time that people are starting to look at, what do we need to solidify ourselves for the rest of the season? And I think this league it does a good job for the most part of enabling people to be both buyers and sellers. But right now we're in a situation where there's really only 2 teams who are out of it. There's Jake's team and there's Fitz's team, and everybody in between or everybody above those teams is still in it. So there's not many sellers. Is there anybody you have circled that you're thinking could be a seller going into the next couple weeks? Let's say they don't win this week.
It's so matchup dependent, right? Like we're playing interdivision right now, and so it seems so matchup dependent, right? And like if you're looking at this, week 7, Kelly plays Peter. With Peter's injuries, like he said in the chat, he could end up selling. But I don't think he sells this week. And honestly, I don't know if he sells next week. If he ends up 3-4, he could end up 4-4 after playing Duncan, right? If he ends up beating Duncan and going back to 4-4.
Christ, look at these projections. Oh my God, their entire teams are on buys.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild. Yeah. But going back to week 7, right? So I don't know if Peter sells, right? And then we've got Ken playing Steve in week 7. If Ken wins, I'm not sure Steve sells just yet. I could see him selling, given recent, this season's moves, right, to potentially, look to the future. But he's also made moves to make himself competitive this year. And so I don't know if a loss moves the needle for Steve. I don't think a loss would move the needle for Ken.
I'm sorry, but who is Steve selling? I'm sorry, Steve. Like who's buying what Steve is selling at this point?
Maybe
Ken
Nico
Walker?
Collins. I don't know if
he's got Nico on a good. Collins. He's got Nico on a good contract, right? He's got Nico for $11.
Yeah, other than that, I don't know. Maybe RJ Harvey, but I don't know why. He's not been doing much. Golden has not done much. And Walker, it seems like he's just falling further and further into a timeshare. And is, one thing that I was also listening to this other podcast, and they had mentioned with Walker, if you look at past years, especially last year, and you look at his receiving, he was one of the top 5 backs in terms of target share. In 2025, if you look at it, he has not had, more than he's had 1 target in 4 games, 4 of the 6 games, right? So he's essentially been written out of the passing game in Seattle, presumably, I don't know, like with the emergence of JSN and Horton and Cooper Kupp, these some of these short yardage guys, having those out Arnold. So
Barnard, their tight end, Barnard has been playing really well. So they drafted another tight end too, the young guy Arroyo, who I think they also see like he's been doing a little bit here and there. So
well, I don't know. I don't know if there's anyone to buy necessarily on Steve's team. I would
sorry, Steve.
Week 7 also. Alec is playing Doug. I don't think Alec takes a loss here and thinks I have to sell. Given his division, I think there's still movement there. Josh, I think if Josh loses to Jake this week at 2-5, I do think Josh might be more inclined to look to sell. But I don't know either. I mean, I think 2-5, that's rough, but I don't think that's insurmountable. Especially given, the rest of the division. If Duncan, 2-5, you're only 2 games behind first place, presumably if Duncan or Alec win. So I don't know if he moves. Especially,
and I think neither. I agree with you. It's going to be very dependent on, Duncan. Duncan's going to have a hard time winning this week. It's not that game's not an easy matchup for him.
He's playing
and Alec is going to have a hard time winning this week.
Yeah, so I think they could all end up 3-4. Why would they sell if they're all 3-4? Yeah, I agree with that. So I don't know if there's anyone that's going to sell, right? I mean, maybe Peter, if he's just hits the panic button and throws it all out the window. But I don't think he's in a position where he could lose. He will definitely lose to Kelly. He's still in a good position to get a win this week, and I don't think he sells at that point either. Especially if he can then weather Puka's bye week, and hopefully he's getting him back at that point. And same thing with Lamar Jackson coming back either this week, next week, or the week after. So I don't know. I don't see very many sellers outside of Jake and Fitz. And Fitz has made it clear that he's not wanting to sell his premier players. He's not moving Scadabo. He's not moving.
Why would he? Yeah. What did he pay for Scadabo? He couldn't have paid more than $3 or $4 for him, right? $5.
Yeah. He's not moving him. He could move Devonta Smith, but I don't know if that really moves the needle for very many people. Garrett Wilson has a pretty serious injury. Doesn't seem like that's going to be interesting to move either. And then you've got other guys such as JMO, which I don't think JMO is going to move the needle for a lot of people. It's not going to put anyone over the top, right? Which is kind of what we're looking at right now. Is we have all these teams at 3-3, and everyone's looking for a differentiator, and these guys are not that, and they're not going to be that person that puts them over the top. It's just going to make the start-sit decisions worse for all of us if we go out and get a guy like Devonta Smith or Chase Brown or Romeo Doubs or Garrett Wilson, right? It's going to be tough, right? And so I think that's just going to make it worse. So I don't know if anyone has the appetite to go out and make that move. And then Jake, he previously said Drake London was off the table. That he was not accepting any bids on him, and has now kind of come out and said maybe he would be willing to move for another premier player, potentially injured premier player, which there are some of those out there, but unless they're on if they're on a good deal, then I don't know why anyone would move them, right?
I got to be honest, and I'm not trying. Well, maybe I am trying to talk down the trade market for Jake. But if I'm Jake, I'm looking at the state of the league, and he's 1-5. But most of the league is only 2 games better than him. And Jake's roster is not bad. He's got Bill. He's got Achane. He's got London. Bourne's been all right. Addison is coming back. There is a world. Jake's got the second most points in his division right now. It's not like he hasn't been putting up points. He just hasn't been winning. There is a world here where a team that goes 6-7 makes the playoffs, right?
7-6 maybe. Yeah.
Well, I mean, either way, 6-7, 7-6. Who knows? Depending on how this all shakes out.
Look at this. If Jake didn't sell off Saquon, just let's say he had Saquon, right? He's rolling into a win this past week. He plays Josh this week, which is a possible win, right? And then he plays Alec next week, potential win. He plays Fitz, probable win. He plays me in week 10, with his roster, and if they're healthy, potential win there for sure. He rolls into the harder division, right? Into the Papa Bear division, right? But still, it could take on Doug and then Peter, and then let's see, Doug and then me, then Peter, let's see here. You, which then you kind of roll into the harder
well,
ones.
He comes. Yeah, he's going to come back around to his own division at that point.
Yeah.
But again, like I just said,
right?
He had
Like
the
he
second
could
most
go,
points.
yeah, he
Mhm.
could end up with 6 losses, right? He could, in theory, only lose one of those. So it's gonna be hard. It's gonna have to hold on tight, but I don't
mean,
think he's out.
I guess what I'm saying about Jake's team, and then we can kind of wrap this up. But I guess what I'm saying about Jake's team is like he already got his money. Like he just he just got a shitload of money. The incentive isn't there for him
Yeah.
to sell off a bunch of these players. And so I don't know if I'm him, I'm maybe looking at this saying, like, given what the rest of the league is going through, given the state of injuries across the league, I mean, shit, he's got the RB1 in Arizona sitting on his bench right now. Like, given the state of the league, maybe just roll the dice and see,
Yeah, see where
just let
you end up. Yeah.
let it play out, see what happens.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe I make the playoffs by by the end of the year. So I don't know. That just
It's interesting.
there.
I mean, and we've seen like where we've had teams come into the draft with $250, $275 in draft cap. And it doesn't always we haven't seen a team truly be successful with that model, right? It's more about getting good players on good contracts than going out and buying your 2 to 3 like $65, $70 players and relying on those 3 to make it through the season. So I could see Jake, wanting to just hold tight with like the good value that he has in Achan and London, and then trying to put together a playoff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know who's selling besides Fitz, but what's he selling? I don't know. There's not much.
Yeah,
There's not much market out there. I mean, you put up Prescott and Ferguson, who are a premier duo, a stack, I would say. And it's someone who's in the market for a quarterback and potentially a tight end. Fannin has come on really, really strong outside the last couple of weeks. Some less in need of a tight end at this point, but certainly in need of a quarterback. But I don't know if I have anything that is like outside of money is worth offering, given at least what happened with MHJ, and like my wide receiver core is it's a bunch of wide receiver 2s. Like I have Pittman is 17, Metcalf is 16, MSJ is 30, I think. Like, there's not much depth there. So like really I need more help in the quarterback position or in the wide receiver position than I need in the quarterback position, although my quarterbacks are also abysmal. So that is, I don't, outside of offering money, which could certainly do. I don't know how much I would pay for a quarterback, somewhere in that $5 to $10 range, but
all right, we can we don't have to negotiate. We're already pretty late into the show, so we don't have to negotiate on air. But I got some ideas about how we might approach this. But I am also, I think, of the mind that maybe I wait another week and just see, where I'm at, and another week with the roster. There's
I don't know.
There.
Exactly. I don't know if there's much incentive for people to be selling at the moment. And I think there's some tepid buyers because the market, there isn't much on the market at the moment. So it'll be interesting. But I love that because in years past, we've had people sell off early and
for
to
sure.
have a competitive league coming into week 7 is great. So
agreed. I think that is as good a place as any to end it. No weekly prize this week. I think the next one is coming up in a couple weeks in week 8. But some big matchups out there. We'll be watching on Sunday, and we hope you will be too. All right. Stay safe out of there, everybody. For Brother John, this has been the RTF Show.
Frogs stand together. Brazil.